Hey there, Jeff Manchester, Manchester Music. Is the mic on? I had to redo this because the mic was not on before. Welcome. We're going to talk about Chamber Evolutions, Olafur Arnalds, the latest thing from Spitfire Audio Company, whom I revere tremendously. And anyway, it's going to be a bit of a return to form for the channel in that I'm going to play a song, a cue that I wrote, and I'll use that as a sort of diving board to go into certain aspects of this library, what would make it different, unique, all the rest of it from other Spitfire offerings and just the sort of overall character of it. So let's just dive in. Here's a little cue that I wrote, and yeah, it doesn't have a name, but you know. There we go. Yeah, little cue anyway. Hopefully it's um, something that gets you interested in what we're about to talk about. Let's just start with like the coolest thing about this library. And I don't really need to go over this territory. A lot of reviews and stuff, they start with like, oh, here's the amount of gigs and all this stuff. And it's like, no one cares. At least I don't think so. If you've been to the channel and if you've been using sample libraries, you know what the Evolution series is like. You have a pegboard where you just put your pegs in, and they just they differ in categories based on the kind of tone of the performance. It's an episodic performance, or it's a more scary performance, or a more subtle performance. The thing that makes this library unique, in addition to having a bass evo and a strings evo, is that we have these waves, and these wave articulations are said to emulate. They're directly inspired from, I think, something that Olafur does. The marketing says that anyway. I'm not really sure because I'm ignorant of his work. I don't know his work. I'm sure I've heard it before and it's great. But these are very characteristic of what he does. These waves anyway. Let's just play a couple here for you. This is what the menu looks like. So we have these. I can go a little bit louder here with my dynamic slider. The bottom line is these arcs, these waves. Wave is very appropriate. Things sort of crescendo and then go back down. This is what Olafur is sort of, I guess he's one of his signature sounds is doing this. And the good news is that the thing I like about this is that it takes a lot of the guesswork away with regard to having to automate and having to do your sort of dynamic slider, even though they do have that here and release and expression in there, but the vibrato is sort of baked in. It just lets you sort of play the instrument, lets you play the orchestra without having to think of like, when should I bring the faders down, the sliders down. You don't really have to worry about animating those strings in the same way that you would if you were playing with a different sample library from even Spitfire. Or even if you're playing with the Evos that are part of this library. So it just makes for like a really kind of no-brainer, easy way to get your ideas down or form a whole song. A lot of these libraries are often billed as like this is like the scratch pad, the inspiration. A lot of people I know, including myself, are using these to write, not like, oh, I hope I get inspired and like, this library will be like 10% of my overall composition. A lot of people write start to finish, and not just demos, like the finished stuff for for film, for TV, especially for TV when there's no budget for a real orchestra. So this stuff is really handy. And on a weird personal note, I feel like, a lot of these sample library companies should be a little bit more, proud that a lot of people are using these guys. A lot of people are using samples and really happy to be using realistic samples that they feel they can be creative with, instead of going, well, I just use it, as a temp track and then we give it to a real orchestra. To me, this is super convincing and beautiful. So anyway, so we have different articulations, more or less. We see we have the diagrams in here. So we have, these are very sustained notes. So we have the longest there, we have long. And then we get less sort of time, less sort of life here. Shortest amount. And those are very dramatic. They add a lot of flair. I have a couple of those going, and we'll investigate these tracks one by one to sort of dig into these articulations more. But while we're here, tremolo, same thing, longest. Shortest. Same here. They're very cool. And then the shortest here. Let's try some different chords. So really lovely. And we can do the same thing in the, if I open this up, we can do the same thing. If I go down here, it gets a bit crazy. Spitfire collector. With the basses, we have waves in there too. So, same thing. Longest, and we have tremolo again. A bit more expressive, I find, the tremolos in the bass than the tremolos in the regular strings waves. And of course we have our mic mixes as well. I should mention that we have close mics. These guys are ST. Totally forgetting what this stands for again. Spot mics? No, that doesn't make any sense. Maybe they're spot mics. I'm an idiot. I'm forgetting. I'm having a brain fart. Ambient mics and the tree. And we can blend them all in together. Oh, I feel like a fool for not knowing that. And let's go to the chamber grid. Obviously, this is sort of what people are used to when it comes to the grid stuff. Divided between subtle, thrills, episodic, dissonance, and then we can change where the pegs are. If we want to keep them in their category, randomize with only those that are visible in this sort of structure, or randomize in column, randomize with any. So, for example, if we just go to something like, randomize with episodic, now we have these to play from. So if we want a different sort of flavor, we can go to, randomize with thrills. Pretty beautiful, I think. And that just gives you a very cursory sort of overview of what's in this library. If we want, I want to anyway. Let's go track by track in this piece, and I'll walk you through how the library fit in, because it's one thing to have all the options played and presets played and all that stuff, but I think it's another to hear how it's used in a cue, and maybe it'll give you some ideas on how this can fit in something that you're doing at home or want to do. Let's start with the lead treble up here. I think this is I used mostly the waves because I was very impressed with the waves. That's an EQ. Let's go to contact. There we go. So this is a chamber waves up here. So we're using the normal longest, for this. And if I solo this, we can hear what I've done. In the mix, it sounds like this. Soloed again. It's going to decay there. So you'll notice here at the end I did some volume automation just on this second track here. I didn't do any automation. I'm kind of surprised on the lead treble pass just because I have no idea, but there is a lot of automation all over this mix. I'm adding a little bit of EQ here on the channel, just a bit of air, a bit of brightness, up here at around 3200 hertz all the way up. Without it sounds like this. If that matters to anyone, I'll turn it off. I'll toggle it on and off. Anyway, so that's that. I found it, excuse me, to be like a super nice, lovely, very sharp sounding treble coming from the chamber waves. We're going close mic, by the way. This is something I see people doing a lot. I think I don't see them, but I hear them talking about a lot. They get these libraries and they're like the Evo stuff, and they're just like, oh, it sounds like this big sort of like fart cloud. Like I can't detect anything. There's no like discernible melodies or anything. It just sounds like this big gobbly mess. And sometimes that can sound really beautiful, but a lot of it has to do with what mic mix you're choosing. Are you going for close mics? It's going to give you a much more sinewy, sharper sound, than you would get if you're going with ambient mics that are set up depending on the orchestra. I think they did this at Air Studios, where I'm pretty sure they own the place at this point. Those mics are sort of in the middle of nowhere, maybe up, the nose in Siberia, and the outriggers are sort of on the sides, and then we have close mic stuff, and then the Decatree is a Decatree. It's a little bit further back, but it's going to give you less of the presence and the physicality of the playing. So if you find that your mix lacks depth and perspective and all that stuff, chances are everything that you have, all your strings are all, unbeknownst to you, maybe set to, tree or ambient mic'd. Therefore, you don't have a lot of focus or anything like that. Just a thought. So make sure that you, make a decision about what you want to be at the forefront of the mix, and then, go with your mic position from there. So if you want the treble parts to be the focus, or if they're going to guide the rest of the piece, then go for close mics, just commit to it, put a ring on it and go, these are going to be close mic'd. The next bit that we have here, by the way, on a Mac, Logic is obviously a Mac, will open up the automation lanes, so that's how I'm doing that, in case anybody wanted to know. For the flutter treble, this is really nice, I found. This is just to accent the ending of the piece, just to sort of sign off and give a new flavor, because we don't really have this articulation to sound really anywhere else in this cue. So pretty incredible when you think that we can get those kind of sounds out of an orchestra, a string orchestra. It sounds more like woodwindy to my ears, but this was just meant to sort of bring about a kind of exciting finale. Because if we listen to the passage that precedes this, we don't really get that kind of breathy articulation from any of these strings, and it just sort of adds a kind of like wild card to the mix. And again, if I press A, we go to our automation lane. You can see that I did a bit of automation in the volume. So we want to kind of tease this out in a surprising way to make it more impactful than it would be if it was just sort of sandwiched on top of our lead treble line. So that's why it sort of comes out of nowhere and just sort of surprises you a little bit. And on that track, I think I've got another channel EQ just boosting a little bit, the exact same range. I think I just duplicated the track, really. And I should mention it, I guess, at this point. No reason in saving it for the end, but I have the UAD Studer tape machine here, A800. It just glues everything together, and it also has a really lovely warm kind of vibe, and it also has that really, it's artificial, I guess, but it has that kind of white noise that makes this recording feel intimate and maybe more real, because chances are this, maybe I want someone to think that I recorded this in an actual room and it had a bit of a noise floor and the noise floor leaked into the recording or something. So if I turn this on and off, you can hear the difference. Hopefully, maybe you can't, but we'll get to the third track where I talk about the bass waves, but just have a listen when I toggle this on and off. I'll do that properly. I didn't do that well, so here we go. Okay, now that's cheating a little bit because the loudness is going crazy. If I put the output at 0, is that going to fix it? I don't want to lose that dial right there. Let's see if I can get some good before and afters now. So you don't go out and buy this just because it's making it louder, and you think it's better because it's louder. Hopefully it's obvious that when I press sync, I am turning it on and off. The reason I went with sync and through or input is because if I go by the big blue button over here, the big Apple button, listen to what happens. You get that little click, which is not fun. I guess because we're not ending on the crest of a node in the waveform or something, but it's not working for me. So anyway, it just gives some warmth. It does what tape is supposed to do, which is add a bit of a low bump and a high bump and a nice little dip in the middle, and also some compression and that white noise, which again just makes it sound more real to me, to my ears anyway. So let's go to the next bit here, which is the bass follow, which is really just following the lead treble. My tracks are seldom named, the thing that they are. They're more sort of like the instrument and like the vibe or the thing that it's performing. In this case, it's going to follow our lead treble track. So for this, I believe I'm doing a little bit more of the dynamics. Maybe I'm not doing any automation here. Now, some of you with really good ears or really good headphones will notice that it's I'm not sure, it's clipping a little bit. I'm okay with that. In the mix, it sounds just fine. I think it's coming from the Studer, if anything. But to me, that's okay. When it all gels together, it really sounds like it's kind of in your face and climbing through the mix. And the low end is something that you really want to be present, or I want to be present, at least in this cue. So just want to point that out. That's not Spitfire. That's something on my end. And again, we talked about mic choicing. Look at this. close mic'd, right? So I want the bass and the treble, the high and low strings, to be very in your face and very sort of up front. So anyway, just pointing that out. So that's, that's the bass track. And on there, nothing is happening. There's no effects, no reverb, nothing. There's just room noise. A little bit of, I guess, simulated reverb there. But yeah, nothing in the way of super fancy processing that, you have to have your audio effects loaded up with about 10 plugins, otherwise you're not a composer. Nothing like that. So let's go to the Evo Razzle. Again, all scientific terms, Evo Razzle. So here we are. Look at this. Mic mix, ambient. I want to be far away with this one. This is more an effect. It's Razzle. It's just there to sort of titillate and excite you and come in and out. Titillate and come in and out. This channel will be shut down pretty soon. We have some automation here. Touch automation. I think this is on the dynamics, and we're doing volume automation. I believe if I plop this down, yeah, volume automation and dynamics in control. So we're doing a lot here, or control and complete. So let's have a listen to what I'm doing here and what it's adding to the piece. I'll close this kind of insane migraine-inducing automation view, and let's solo this. I'll call it up here. It's called bass follow just because I duplicated a track, but it's the chamber grid. I'll open the automation again. In the mix. In the mix. The thing to note there, in addition to the mic mix and the automation, which I think are super important, is that the thing about Evo is it's not for people who want instant gratification. When you put your hands down, really wait for some interesting sounds to come about, because that's, I find 50% of some of my favorite stuff in the Evo stuff is, just being patient and just seeing where the waveform is going to go, seeing where the little performance is going to go. Usually you get some really interesting textures and stuff that only reveal themselves after about 3 or 4 seconds, not when you first hit the note. So, if you find this, if you find that you're just quickly scrolling through and not finding anything of interest, just give it a minute and see if maybe some interesting, some interesting detail, bubbles up to the surface of that waveform, and then that'll be your, your favorite little articulation or something like that. So that's something there. And this is, again, just to add flair and texture to what's going on and support the melodies that I have in the lead treble and in the bass follow, and just to be a little bit different. That's why that's there. So also not a lot of crazy panning here. I guess I pan this one a little bit to the far right. Hopefully that'll come through on the speakers. My setup is weird. I panned to the right and it came through on the left speaker, which means my wiring is messed up, but I'm still getting this room organized. It's finally treated and painted. I'm getting a new desk and a bunch of other stuff pretty soon, so I'll have that fixed. But anyway, Evo Razzle again. And this time, actually the first Razzle, I should say, is going to a bus, 100% blended, and that has Altiverb 7 on it, and we're hanging out in the Opera of Antwerp. So I'm sending information, I'm splitting the signal, sending it to the Opera of Antwerp, a preset in the convolution reverb plugin known as Altiverb 7 XL, and so it's sending me back a nice wet signal and just giving that Razzle a little bit of air. It's doing the same, but I'm adding a little bit less here on the bus for the Evo Razzle, this other one over here. It's a bit less important to this cue, but let's have a listen to it. And would you look at that? It's not an Evo Razzle, it's a chamber waves. And these are just Quick tremolos, yeah, to accent the cue. Wow, what do you know? I'm going to make you guys wait to hear the next one. Dynamics going up. Yeah. Let's hear those in the mix, shall we? So really subtle, but they're there and they just sort of accent really important moments in the cue. The next bit here, gap fill. This should be interesting. Oh, by the way, engage this purple link here because that means that when you flip tracks, you're going to flip between your instances of contact. I made the mistake, see what I mean? So now we're chamber grid and gap fill, and my Evo Razzle, which is really a wave, is going to be when I press this, my chamber waves. So I made the mistake before of thinking that the contact that I had on the screen was the one that was on the track just because I wasn't using this trick or technique, and I go into program something and I end up messing up something that was on my track before because I was really looking at, you know, track 2's contact, and I thought I was on track 7 or track 6's contact. So just a tip. So up and down. Let's look here. What do we have? I think this is just meant again to sort of fill in some space. That's why it's called gap fill. Let's have a listen. Pan to the left a little bit. So, and these are close mic'd because I found like they're getting kind of lost under the cloud of these guys here that weren't the main stars of the show. So I made this close mic so it has a bit more focus. Again, all about priorities with miking. The next bit here, let's take a look at what it is. It is another chamber grid, which I think is more for dramatic effect than anything. Let's have a listen. Yeah. I think you get the picture, but let's have a listen to it, and I'm going to mute it, so we're not going to hear it, and you'll see what it adds, I think, to this last dramatic moment of the cue. Definitely you miss it when it goes away, or I do anyway. It just adds a bit. It's like a new character walking onto the set, and everyone's like, oh, who's that, you know? So that made no sense. Let's play it. So now I'm going to unmute it. So that is that. The next and last bit has nothing to do with chamber evolutions. It is Sonic Couture. Surprise, surprise. Open up. Shut up, beach ball. There we go. So it's just it's a really awesome impact that I love. Gong Waitomo. It just sounds awesome, and it just really complements what's happening here. It adds a nice tail of just, I don't know what, Some nice subbiness in there, and then it repeats over here. Let's bring it back. Here's 2 knocks. Yeah. It's like a really intense version of like Law and Order. The people of New York and prosecuting Ice-T. I didn't time that properly. Ice-T. Like there's only the SVU version. No. Anyway, so that's the whole cue. Should I play it again? Is anyone still watching? Probably not. The algorithms tell me that like people just peters out after like 2 minutes and no one's still here. But if you're still here now that you've heard every aspect, or a lot of aspects, I think, of this library, let's have a listen, and then I'll sort of wrap up with my thoughts about this library. Okay, so in this last... There we go. Okay, so now I can relax a little bit. For this last section of the video, I just want to talk about like my feelings about this library. I think it's gorgeous. I really do. I think it's soft, and it's a nice complement to the chamber strings library. If the chamber strings library allows you to write very specific sort of sharper sort of cues, because they're a little bit more... I'm not sure what the word is for it, but you can sort of plot away a little bit more and control a little bit more. Whereas this is very wild and very sort of capricious, and it changes and it's ambient. It's like a noise generator in a way. But what I kind of want to say at this last bit here for the people that are still watching, because that's the reward really, is for those who stick around. They get to know how I really feel about things. When I was downloading this library, and for anyone who thinks that like Spitfire sent this to me, no, they don't send me anything. I'm paying for this library. I'm like, chamber waves, okay, cool. Another Evo grade, got it. Okay, awesome. And I'm like, okay, I have the Bernard Herrmann Chamber Evolutions, the Mass, the Orchestral Swarm, okay. Spitfire Woodwinds, Brass, Strings, Albion 5, okay. Chamber Strings, LCO, Albion 1. I'm just going like, how many string libraries do I need? Does anyone really need? I don't mean this in a mean way, but like, no one's holding a gun to my head to buy these things, obviously. No one is. But when the libraries are just like extensions of other libraries, like this is an extension of the Evo series and a sort of complement to the chamber strings version, and a complement, I guess, to what Olafur is doing. You kind of have to ask yourself, like, do I really need this? Does Spitfire need to be making this? I mean, I guess they do. I think there's a lot of people that are wondering what the difference is between this and like Evo 1 or this and the other evolutions thing. I don't have orchestral evolutions. I guess this is meant to be a more sort of calmer version of string evolutions. I'm getting so orchestral evolution. I'm getting kind of oversaturated with these string libraries, and I think the onus is obviously on the customer to go like, how many of these do I really need? But I guess what I'm kind of hinting at here is that I feel like if Spitfire is going to be releasing these libraries, which share so much DNA with the other library, like you look at Heaviosity, for example, it's not, I mean, it's they have Novo, which is so different from Gravity. They have Novo, they have Gravity. everything they do is different. Look at Sonic Couture. Everything Sonic Couture does is different. It's like it's like a new chapter, a new series, a new character, a new this, a new that. With Spitfire, it's like the 2.5 version of this and the little cousin, and we discovered this cool sampling method, and now we're going to take all the stuff that we did with this one library and just resample it in a different way and give you, it's just little incremental things, and they're great. They're well recorded. The marketing is amazing, and they have introductory pricing. They have discounts for students, don't get me wrong, but I feel like if there's any company in the world right now that needs a subscription model, it's Spitfire Audio, because it's just getting to the point now where all of these libraries are just sort of like shades of strings, and like, here's a different shade, here's a different color to color with, and they're all great and everything, but like, this is on sale now in Canada, or I had to pay US for this, so I think it's, boom, here it is. So it's $219 US, it's going to be $299, it's going to flip, when it goes full price, but that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for 30 gigs of samples of just strings that probably is indistinguishable for a lot of people from one of the first Evos or whatever. It's not, it's different. It has the waves, which is very different, but I just feel like it's time to start getting people to pay $30 a month. The samples, the company is awesome. The products are gorgeous, well recorded. The team is awesome. You've seen Christian Henson's blog. If you haven't, you're an idiot. Go watch right now. But, the products just are so similar, I find, in vibe and everything. And there's Bernard Herrmann was different. LCO was a standout product because that was like truly different. Articulations we hadn't heard before and everything. But this Evo 1, 2, 3, 4, Swarm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this evolution, that evolution, it's just a little bit, I just feel like I will pay you $30 a month and just give me everything you have and keep me updated. It's a bit like Slate. Like Slate is like a Me Too company. What that means is they just make products that are already out there on the market in analog form. And they have so many products, and same thing with East West, they just have so many products out there and they just figured it out. Okay, we're going to go subscription. And I just feel like for $300 US for 30 gigs, I don't know if I'm going to jump up and down next time that they have like a drum evolutions or another like chamber woodwinds evolution. I don't know, so this is kind of how I feel. I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I'm reaching the point of saturation with putting down this money for libraries that are incrementally different from one another. And I hate to keep qualifying this, but like, they are awesome. The company's great and everything, but I'm just reaching a point now where I don't know if I want to shell out X amount of my rent to pay for a library like this. But it does sound gorgeous. The waves are really welcome and awesome, and they take a lot of the guesswork, again, out of that automating and all that stuff, so I really appreciate that. So overall, super positive, but I just had to ask myself existentially, like, just what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Do I just want something new? Look at my friggin' contact folder. Look at all the stuff I own from Spitfire. Down here. Like Bernard Herrmann, Swarm. This is not me doing like James Franco thing and like Spring Breakers, like, look at my shit. Like, this is not that. I'm not bragging. It's like, it's a lot. Plus all the stuff that I have in the quick folder, like all the marimba swarms and all that stuff. So anyway, probably shame on me for continuing to buy this stuff, but I don't know. I feel like subscription model, definitely the way to go, at least for Spitfire anyway. But anyway, thanks for watching and listening to me rant and hanging out with me in this room, which I'm very proud of. Looks a little bit more decent now. And yeah, that was Olafur Arnalds' Chamber Evolutions. Take care.